Welcome, everybody, to the Raad Life, the only talk radio show that takes you along with host and age explorer Rod Gantos on his continuing journey of discovery into life's challenges, opportunities, options, and all the latest and greatest things that come with getting older. The Raad Life is brought to you this week by Your Home for a Lifetime, a company dedicated to empowering you to stay safely, independently, and comfortably in your own home. And now here is your host, Rad Gantos.
Good afternoon, everybody. It is Wednesday. It is a little after 12, but you know what? It's okay. We had a longer lunch than expected.
And a run.
And a run, you know. Jevon had to get a run in before the show. He just gets really kind of worked up.
That's right.
Gets the energy levels up.
Yeah.
But thanks for joining us again for another episode of the Raad Life. If you were subject to any kind of elections that ended yesterday, I'm sorry. No, I'm kidding. But it seems like kind of a wild time this year so far, and I personally am glad it's kind of over.
And
so,
who won in San Clemente?
Let's not talk about that.
Oh, it didn't go the way you thought.
No, it didn't go the way. It didn't go the way I thought. Although it's only going to be a year. What my, if I may just take a minute to get on the soapbox, the thing that really was most annoying and upsetting was just the lack of civility that happened. It seems like every election cycle gets worse and worse and worse. People justify bad behavior. Somehow, if we win, then it's all okay. And I think we as a society pay a price for that.
And it got ugly in sleepy little San Clemente here.
Gets ugly.
Confrontations and harassments and accusations,
abuse and attacks and bad blood and all this stuff. That there's a cost that we pay for.
Does the end justify the means?
Right, and there's always a day after. And that's what people seem to always forget with elections. It's like, you could basically, bloody somebody and, literally we had a fight in the middle of the street in San Clemente, right? This election cycle. It's every elections. I long for the days where people just stole yard signs from people's front yards, right? Is that a sad state of affairs?
That was as mean as it got, yeah.
But it got ugly. So
I take it because there were 5 people running.
I had
and
four of the candidates that were on, and I of course got accused of all kinds of bias, which I don't understand how I'm biased when I basically have 4 candidates on the show,
right.
Even though I endorsed one. Doesn't matter,
You endorsed one. You said, but I'll throw the platform open.
And we did, and the invitation is still open to anybody who's running for office in this coming year, which is going to be a big general elections to come on the show. We are a neutral platform and an equal opportunity griller. So I'm not going to pull punches, but I'm not. Please feel free to come on and let us know.
So the only one who didn't come on is the guy that went because he was the leader and he
and here's the thing. Okay, I'm a student of history. Okay. You win a battle, but you may not win the war, and I'm going to see how this year pans out, because that person is going to be running again he's filling a seat for a remaining term, so he's got to run again in a year. Okay, it's one thing when you're not a known entity and you're standing on this side of the podium, not saddled with any rules like regulations, ordinances, and things like that, and you promise to do this and that and so forth. When you sit in the chair and you now have to play by the regulations and the rules, that's a different reality. And now
it's easy to throw bombs. It's hard to make something
exactly. And now you are the man. Like the old adage, like fight the man. Well, now you are the man. Mm-hmm. So you will fall victim to the next person who's going to fight the man, right?
That's right.
So we'll see what happens.
Endless cycle.
I wish everybody luck. And at the end of the day, we want to leave things better than we find them. So hopefully everything is great, but hey, it's a free country.
Was it a big turnout, little turnout, and was it a runaway or was it a close?
It was about 50%, 55% of the vote he got, and then the closest one was about 30% of the vote, which was the young candidate that we also had on the show, Jackson. And I think for a special election, the turnout was probably okay. Higher than I thought it was going to be, just in overall, but it wasn't like focused and centered on one candidate. I think those 2 candidates basically got a lot of turnout, more than I expected, for a special election. However, that being said, that wasn't the most jarring thing about this election. This election cost probably close, if not the same, as the last midterm election.
Wow.
for a special election for one seat on
For
city
1
council.
year. One seat, 1 year.
Because I believe there was a lot of dark money that came into play. And again, there's a day after. There's always a day after. And at some point, all the stuff comes out. So we shall see how this year plays out. That being said,
That sounds like my book.
yeah, that being said, and see, Paul always wonders, like, where is he going on these tangents?
And he pulls it together.
I see it. It
You
just
see-
came together.
Did you
That's
see it?
Masterful.
Did you? Thank you. His check cleared today. So, Jevon is a lot of things, and I'm going to let him basically, because your journey. Okay, let's just start the language, right? Your journey, actually, in terms of professional things, career path. I was looking through some of your Facebook, and you had a trip from Anchorage to Costa Mesa.
Yes, that was a good drive.
Like straight drive in like 30 hours or
That's
something?
right. Me and two brothers, we did it in I think 70 hours, something like that.
Yeah, it was. I'm
was a
like,
straight
I'm
drive.
going through this. I was like, this guy is living his book.
Yeah, well, to
Right.
an extent, that's
To an
right. Well, we're all living my book, and that's
Right.
the point of the book.
So with that being said, let's first and foremost introduce yourself. Tell people a little bit about you, including what you do for a 9 to 5.
That's right.
Okay, and then why this book? Why now? And how did you start? What instigated your desire to want to write it? Long-standing desire, something that caused it?
Yeah, those are great questions, Rod. So my name is Jevon Perra, and I have I was actually a Christian pastor for a lot of years, almost 10 years, and I stopped being a Christian pastor just because I had a lot of questions that I didn't know how to answer myself, and I was the one that was supposed to have all the answers, and I didn't.
Interesting.
And so I still go to a Christian church. I'm not against anything really to that matter. But as a pastor, I'm like, you're supposed to have the answers, right? And that's what I thought. And
So was it like a clarity? Was it doubt? Like when you say you had questions, what kind of questions did you have?
yeah, like questions about hell. Like are people really going to go to hell if they're not part of my group? And there's like 11,000 denominations, or I butchered that number, but there's a lot, right? Just Christian denominations.
You're either with us or against us. Started
Right.
to basically wear on you.
Yeah, so I'm like,
Yeah.
well, I don't know. These people seem like great people, and they don't think like I think.
Right.
Is that bad? And it wasn't necessarily. That's not necessarily Christianity, but that's kind of where I was at, a little pocket of, and I didn't know what to do, and so I stepped down.
How old were you when this happened? Just curious.
I got into full-time vocational Christian work when I was 19.
Oh, young.
And so I was, I think I was 28 or 29 at that point.
Okay.
So it was
So you've done like for 10 years you've been doing this.
about a decade at that point.
So
yeah.
it wasn't really a crisis of conscience. You just were starting to question the black and whiteness of it.
That's right. And there was a lot of black and white, you're in or you're out kind of language and even push. And I didn't know. So I thought, well, the most integrous thing for me to do right now is not be the person that's supposed to know.
So I know I'm just going to hang on this for a minute here, but what's interesting, and you and I have not shared this before, like we haven't talked about this before.
That's right.
Right? I was born in Baghdad. My mom is Catholic. My father is Greek Orthodox.
Where is Baghdad? Is that over?
Baghdad,
Is
Iraq.
that back in Michigan or?
Baghdad, Iraq. Yeah, no, yeah, it's by Boise actually.
That's
Okay.
It's somewhere back east.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, well, there is actually there is another place. Wasn't there a movie called Baghdad something or the other?
I think there was.
Yeah. All right. But I was born in Baghdad, Iraq, and my mom is, like I said, is Catholic, and my father is Greek Orthodox. Country, obviously, at that point was secular. It was basically socialist. It was a Ba'ath Party, basically, but the religion was Islam.
yeah.
Never felt any discrimination, or anything. Grew up in Kuwait, in Abu Dhabi first, when there was nothing in Abu Dhabi other than desert. Basically, they were building infrastructure projects. My father was a civil engineer. I went to Kuwait. Again, Muslim country. The only church there is a Catholic church, basically, that all the household help from India basically goes to on Sundays. Everybody else is sort of in like these sort of like makeshift churches that are sort of in people's homes because the actual official language is Islam, and there's sort of a respect to that, tolerance, but not like blatant crosses and stuff. So, and then I kind of traveled and lived all over the place, and I came here. The interesting thing for me, growing up in these environments that were not necessarily insular bubble, is I had a similar experience, sort of from very beginning, which is that there's commonalities, and that and this sense of black and white, like I'm afraid for your soul because you're the wrong denomination, or you know. You don't believe like I do, therefore you are a lesser than, and
Right.
you poor misguided soul. What can I do to minister to you to get you to see the light, kind of thing.
Right.
That is an interesting juxtaposition that we place on religion, and add the layer to it that I never felt like discriminated against because of my religion, or as non-native in those countries. That made it really interesting to organically grow into that situation where you have respect for the religions. You see the commonality in them. Good people are good people, and having faith is having faith. And being motivated by more the things that connect and are common and unify us,
Right.
than the things that
You'll
do
find
not.
what you look for. If you
Right.
look for commonality, you'll find it. If you look for differences, you'll find it.
Right. And so so I'm sorry, but it's I don't really get a lot of chance to share that with somebody, because like I said, it unfortunately tends to be us and them. I'm in this camp, you're in that camp.
Which seems to be human nature. It seems to be what
Tribalism is, yeah, it is. to a
what we
certain
do
extent. Yeah.
kind of on our own. However, my tagline for work and just in general is a conscious advisor. And consciousness is just awareness.
Okay.
Are you aware, or are we going through life automatically?
Are you awoke?
Are you awakened?
Yeah,
But
or
awakened
awakened.
to what, right? Are
Yeah.
you awoke to what?
Yeah.
Well, that's the question, right? And so
Yeah.
that's kind of the question of the book. But to look at what you're saying.
I was just going to say, but I'm going to throw one other little wrench into your discussion of,
Yeah,
hey,
wrench away.
there's all truth and there's seeds of truth in all these
By the way, I love
things,
the
and-
fact that he's about to do this with a bag of popcorn in his lap.
Yeah, exactly. I'm watching a movie. here.
That's right. It's crunching behind me.
But the crunching noise.
And I'm a practicing Catholic. I've been a Catholic my whole life and still go
Get
to
the
church.
heck out of here! No,
Yeah,
I'm just kidding.
despite all the crisis in the church and problems, I get all those things.
you're not even a recovering Catholic?
I'm not even. No, I'm still one of the handful. I'm the only one I know that still goes. Here's my question:
We go every once in a while.
Don't people though gravitate to religion to find certainty? You're trying to embrace the ambiguities and Raad saying, oh, they have some seeds of
That's it.
truth and the connections, but people want, when they walk in, I live in an uncertain world. I don't know who I am and where the world's going and what it is. So I'm looking for certainty.
That's
I'm
right.
not looking for ambiguity.
Well, that kind of reminds me of our conversation we had before the show on the phone of, am I committed to certainty and am I committed to comfort? And because I think, and from my experience, in
a sense of belonging. Let's not forget that. That's a
Oh,
big part of the
belonging
religion, too.
But to the degree that I'm committed to comfort and certainty is to the degree that I limit myself,
Right.
which is what you were saying
So
earlier.
here you find yourself 28, 29. You're questioning,
Questioning.
right?
Yep.
Now what?
Well, so I grew up real estate family. I was slave labor, really. So I'm fixing up houses.
I love that
for-
part of your bio, by the way. Jevon carried bricks at the age of 5.
That's right. I have a picture of me at 4, I think, or 5 with overalls, and I could carry 1 brick at that point, and
Yeah.
I was helpful to the family.
Yeah, they can call Child Protective Services
They
on
could.
that
That's
now.
right. It was, we're talking 79.
Hey, listen,
80, so
I was crushing concrete and doing compression tests, on
That's
some
right.
site when I was a
child
kid.
labor was good in my neighborhood at the
Yeah.
time. So I thought, well, I'll go back to real estate. It's been good for my family, and so I got my real estate license, broker's license. It was before NMLS, and so I got that later along, which is a mortgage loan license, and I've really been doing that since then. So I think it was 2004.
Right.
But I've always been drawn to, why do we do what we do? Why do humans do what we do? Why do I do what I do? Why do I have the same problems over and over that come up with different faces and different circumstances? But in the essence, it's the same thing I'm dealing with, and it was always so fascinating.
Well,
to
the
me.
sense of who am I? How get it? Yeah.
Who am I is a big
That
question.
universal question.
That is. I think that's the most potent question that anyone could ever ask.
Yeah.
Because if you drill down into it, you go through really a path of negation, and you realize that everything that you come up with is not you. There's nothing that a human, where we're at, that you can say that is me,
All right.
because none of it is us, really.
Right.
My hand, is my hand me? Is my fluids me?
Right.
If I spit in a cup, well, am I gonna drink it again? That's disgusting.
So I'm a little lost here when you say it's not me, but it is you. That hand is you.
Well, that's the question. That is the question. Well, who am I, right? So this is, I think it's think it's Buddhism. They call it neti neti. It's a not this, not that. It's a process of negation, really, of figuring out who am I.
Well, and if we actually had a handle on that, if we actually had a sense of self, then why do we always gravitate in one form or the other, whether it's what I wear, or what mask I put on, or who do I resonate with and reflect? Who's my, you have.
What car do I drive? Who do I marry? Yeah, right.
You know,
What group do I hang
you
around
send me a
with?
bunch of questions, and the one that
What do I
really
register
you
as?
start off with, you say, loving heroes movies, having sort of idols that you look up to, whether they're sports figures or whatever, like, and you start dressing like them, you start echoing like. If you had a sense of self, I wonder whether we would be so prone to actually do that.
I think that the majority of humans have their self in their community. They are their community, really. And I think it's unfortunate a lot of times that people's success and direction in life often comes from their zip code, right, where they come from. It doesn't have to be, by any means. Human potential is infinite.
Well, the word community could be beyond physical as well, right?
Oh, yeah. It's anything that we identify with.
Right.
Even a broad scope of something like thoughts. Do I think that my thoughts are me? Which is a really interesting question, right?
Right.
Are the thoughts in my head from me? And most people say, of course that's
I
me.
have a dog that talks to me and gives me all the thoughts and directions, Harry.
Okay. Well, you know what? That could be better than some of the thoughts I've had. I'll listen to your dog occasionally.
So does he bark at you?
Wasn't that Son of
It
Sam's
was-
thing? You're too young to remember the famous Son of Sam killings that terrorized New York. And when they finally found this guy, they couldn't catch him because there was no pattern. And when they finally found him, they said, why are you killing these people? And he said, my dog, Sam, was telling me to do this. I had to listen to him.
So, okay.
That was a wonderful diversion. Thank
Yeah,
you.
well, I'm just still laughing at the popcorn bag in his lap.
I feel like I'm watching a movie. now.
It's
like
like
the
it's jumping. away.
Comedic breaking.
I'm
right?
waiting
The
for the
system.
answers to come.
It's like
right.
this show all of a sudden turned into South Park or something. So, okay, so those are really kind of, I think, questions that we all either are bemused by or we struggle with to some degree or the other throughout our lives,
Yes.
right?
Forever. So, practically speaking, so there's the metaphysical, something that doesn't have anything to do with practical value, I think,
Right.
of identity. I feel good about myself because
Right.
I know that I'm bigger than I thought I was.
Right.
There's also, practically speaking, I found in business,
Yeah.
for example, and in just any kind of pursuit, if I am independent of the good or bad opinion of others, which is all about the different communities and the different groups that I have identity with, if I'm independent of the good or bad opinion, I'm actually more able to love and to serve. I'm more effective at it. Just because I grew up very dependent on people's good or bad opinions. Very dependent. I got
For that validation.
for validation. Yeah, validation and acceptance.
How many siblings do you have?
So altogether, mixed marriage. So got a complex family.
Yeah.
10 of us, and I'm the oldest.
You're the oldest.
Yeah.
So I'm the oldest too. So there's definitely well, no, but I mean, you know what I'm talking about. There's certain things as an older child that you experience, I think, because there's really no defined. I mean, you kind of almost experiment a little bit.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know,
and I take
and
responsibility. That's what I do.
Right, but and then you also have the large group dynamic going on.
Yeah.
So there's always that sort of.
And you're supposed to teach the others. You're supposed to be the
but
enforcer.
But even your identity. I mean, everybody in that group, when it becomes a group dynamic. I come from an extended family, like
Yeah.
a large family. My uncles,
Yeah.
uncles, cousins, all this stuff. There's an energy and dynamic that's different when you are part of a tribe of that nature.
Right.
In terms of your identity.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it's a beautiful thing too. I mean,
Oh, yeah,
someone walks into that
absolutely.
house and they're like, "I got to get out of here." right?
Absolutely.
Cheaper by the dozen with
Yeah.
Steve
No.
Martin.
We were like, want to get deeper.
I love this. I'm like, babe, my wife Carolyn. I'm like, babe, let's have 10 kids. She's like, how about 2? And then we met in the middle and had 2.
Dude, when I watched my
middle
big,
and took it her way.
That's right.
When I watched my big fat Greek wedding.
Yeah,
Okay, I looked around and I said, "This is not a movie. This is a documentary."
that's right. They take care.
I mean, I even have that aunt with the matching sweater set, right?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. But it's true, and if you don't get a handle on that in one form or the other, I think as you grow in, you're kind of saddled with this little uncertainty, the sense of kind of maybe being lost a little bit.
I think if you're paying attention,
Rudderless almost.
if you're paying attention, you will feel lost. You always will. And if you're not paying attention, like as if you're numbing, you can cover the pain. But I think that the feeling of lost is directional, meaning that it's leading us somewhere if we're paying attention to
But
it.
isn't that central
part
to
of the
so
journey.
many of the fundamentalist faiths? You were lost, and now you're found.
Yes.
Jesus found the sheep, and you know.
I think that every faith that has a movement is based in some incredible truth that they found, incredible experience that they had that was
The
very true.
awakening.
It was true. It ties into the essence of who we are, our true identity, what's real. And what happened though is that leader, he or she changed their little world, everyone around him. But then when the leader was gone, people had to carry it away, and institutionalizing something for the sake of preserving, it changes it.
Well, I was going to ask you. Absolutely, I completely agree. And Paul, you're like, you're talking about, isn't it every faith, every spiritual, message or ideology.
It's based on a truth.
Basically based on it. Yeah, but what you said was you are lost and then you find something.
Yeah, that's what attracts you to religion.
Okay,
You
but-
feel
but-
lost,
but-
and you're
but
attracted.
here's the thing that I've always had a problem with. When you find something, that may almost spells out the way you're defining it that the quest is over, that I have arrived, right? But that doesn't make sense to me. That doesn't make sense to me because that basically is absolute. That's like it's done.
Right.
Yeah, but the sun rises the next day,
Right.
and there's more growth and more experiences and all this stuff. So what do I basically now just hold on to that edge of the pool of awakening
Yeah.
and say, okay, this is where I'm going to stay for the rest of
Yeah.
my because I can't I don't want to risk leaving this.
Right.
And I was lost. Now I'm found.
Yeah.
Right? Or do I actually gain strength from this moment to then basically explore further?
Can I point out an
Yeah.
interesting thing that maybe feeds into this? And I was born a Catholic, and I'll die a Catholic. I mean, to me, it's part of who I am. No matter what the Catholic Church does, I feel a connection to it. It's the faith of my fathers. It may not be the only faith, but it's the one that I feel most comfortable in. Having said that, I'm stunned. We did a series of shows recently on another show here, a series of episodes on another show, and he said there's just two issues. Do you believe or don't you believe in any religion? And so we had somebody come in who was an atheist. I don't believe in God, whatever. And then he had somebody else a couple of people who came in and talked about different faiths they believe in. I said, you're missing the biggest one in the room, the one that shocks me the most. The people who say, who cares? The largest group of people registered when Pew does religion surveys now is no longer people who don't believe or do believe. It's the people who say, I don't care. I don't believe in anything. I don't. It's not that I don't believe. I just don't care. I don't even think about it anymore.
You know the thing that blew my mind and made my head hurt. Actually, it was when I was having a conversation with my nephew, who at that point was probably about 14 or 13, and I won't name the school he goes to, but he goes to basically a Christian school in South County, and I probably just narrowed it down to about 2 or 3, right? But that's as far as I'm going to go.
Yeah.
I don't
and
think
I won't tell you anything but the initials.
but the initials and the colors of the school,
That's
right? But I don't think it's a school related thing, but he's a little bit of a brainiac, and it was interesting when I was having a conversation with him, and he actually threw at me that he's basically looking at nuances and differences, and he said agnostic atheists and atheistic agnostics, and it took me like days to wrap my head around the nuanced differences between that, right?
That's funny.
But to your point, Paul, yeah, I mean, there's so many layers. And
We're all putting together a melange, a mixture of all these little beliefs and trying to find our own little take on the world here, as opposed to there used to be just two choices. You either believed in God and you picked a truth to follow, or you didn't believe in God, and the heck with it, I'm not going to go to church anymore.
But believing, I don't know, maybe I've got it wrong. It almost sounds like, okay, good for you, you've arrived.
Yeah.
Right?
It could. And a lot of people, and that's where people land, and then they just say, "This is all there is."
I'm just going to repeat this every Sunday. I'm going to do this in every Bible. It's like, okay, I'm just going to rehash, re-immerse in the same stuff, or is it actually a growth point from which you can then explore further?
Right. So the whole. Have you ever heard of non-duality? The term.
No.
So non-duality.
Not often does somebody come in here and throw a term I've never heard of, but I've never heard of that one.
Non-duality, it's a way to describe the undescribable. So duality is this and that, left
Yeah.
and right, good and bad, black and white. There's lines that we can say.
Yeah.
This is where this ends. This is where this
Good
begins.
and evil, Satan
Good
and
and evil.
Satan and
Black
Satan
God.
and
right.
Satan and maybe that's another interesting contrast, Satan and God. But
Well,
yeah, so-
especially when you look at the background story.
yeah, it's like one's an
Right.
angel and one's God. Come on. Anyway, but
Not fighting in the same weight class,
That's
is
right.
what you're saying here.
That's Pee Wee Herman against the old Mike Tyson. Right?
Exactly.
So non-duality means
We should do a show on Satan sometime, because I am actually, I'm a practicing Catholic, but I'm fascinated at the various stories and myths. There aren't many in the Bible.
Satan's
that-
got a bad rap.
and there's some interesting other alternative takes on.
And if
on
you
who
don't
Satan
if you
is.
don't believe Jevon, go watch Lucifer on Netflix.
Yeah.
That is an interesting show.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a nice guy in that one. I don't know what the deal is. Well, just a note on that, I think everything is serving its purpose. Everything and everyone are always serving their purpose, and you can't get out of it. You can't get
What
out
does
of it.
that?
Do I
What
even
is that?
dare
That's
ask?
yeah, that's all.
No. I know what
I'm
his answer is.
skipping non-duality, but yeah.
Okay,
Well, we're gonna go back to that.
But what is the purpose?
What is our purpose? Well, again, this is where I'm at, and it's evolving. In fact, I heard someone say, if you don't look back 5 years and think, and from that perspective of 5 years ago, think where you're at right now is heresy, you're not growing fast enough.
Wow. You got to redefine who you are every 5 years.
Well, you don't have to. There's no have-tos here. However, when you stay open, when you stay in a place of considering, when you stay in a place of a question, what happens is you start to consider and become open to everything. And you don't need to accept everything.
But then you
because,
can lose your faith. You can lose your.
Ah.
well, if you lost what never was, would that be a loss?
Well, and if you really, and you and I, Paul, have had this conversation, and it's ironic because I've had a conversation about this exact thing as recently as lunch, right? And
Other people are talking
and-
about the Dodgers, and you're
Well,
talking about this. right?
I'm looking over my shoulder because the gentleman sitting off camera here, Nick, basically is shaking his head at me. He's like, didn't we just talk about this like 20 minutes
He's
ago?
not being
Right?
a very good audience, by the way. I was hoping for clapping or some heckling.
Well, Paul, can you help him out, please? Like, so that's a momentous moment right there. Like that's a major thing.
Thank you, Nick.
There's your
Thank you.
supporters
Appreciate
coming in.
that.
All right.
We don't let our guests even lift a finger.
Oh,
We
okay.
even provide the applause.
That's right.
Without them lifting a finger.
wonderful.
It's one hand clapping. But it's interesting because we were talking about just that, like, and you and I talked about it on the phone earlier, like being able to see and connect the dots by looking back, and actually
Well, it always makes sense looking back.
but
never
all-
makes sense
but-
looking
but-
forward.
But, no,
yeah.
but hold on a second. But not to where what you get out of looking back is a archival approach. It's not, you're not looking back and connecting the dots so that you can basically put this thing in a nice little documentary archive
Yeah.
that's basically just sitting on
Done.
the shelf as a momentous, a spot, capturing a moment in your life. Oh, look, here's the memoirs, here's the thing. No, I'm talking about where you connect the dots because that provides you the next launch pad
That's right.
to where you go. That provides you the strength to let go the ropes off the dock and basically go into uncharted water.
That's
But
right.
don't you think most people, you loved old movie analogies, so I'm going to throw an old movie analogy at you here. See if you're hip enough to this one here.
Only
It's
if
kind
you're
of an
ready to be
obscure
hit
one.
with another one.
It's kind of an obscure one here. Cannonball Run.
Yes.
Okay, Burt Reynolds, Cannonball Run. Got it.
Sammy
Yeah,
Davis,
yeah,
Sammy,
yeah,
Sammy,
yeah.
Davis, Sammy Davis
Clap.
Jr.,
And there, all these teams racing across America here, trying to get super one.
Don DeLuise.
It run this illegal road to see who
Shall
can
I
go
stop
from
now?
one coast to the other. What does the Italian team say when he takes off his rearview mirror? He says, "What's behind me does not matter."
Right.
It's always so in that.
But I don't agree.
So he's saying, don't worry about what happened before. Just always look forward. Doesn't what behind you doesn't matter. I think that's the way most people live their life.
Right, but there is strength, and it really...
They don't want to go back and connect the dots. They don't even care what happened before. It's keeping me down. It's being negative. It's focusing in the past. Today's methodology is always forward, always positive. What behind me doesn't matter. I know people like that. I know a lot of people.
And how does that work out, Paul?
Well, and the past that doesn't matter.
I'm a
is-
history major, so you're asking the wrong person. there.
Exactly. Thank you very much. You just proved my point.
I mean, it's equally as unimportant sometimes as the future that should matter.
Right.
And so both of those things take us out of the present, and that's really what non-duality is. It's releasing everything and being present. And when we're present, the assignment of our identity
Right.
vanishes. What am I? Am I on a talk show right now,
Yeah.
or am I being with another soul that I am more connected with
Right.
than I could have ever known?
What is it that you see when you see this happening? What is it that you take out of it? Is it that this is happening in a room?
Yeah.
Is it that this is on the show? You know, I mean, God knows we don't get any calls from anybody. So are the wires connected? Are we even putting out a message? Are we just talking to
Please,
ourselves?
God, send a call.
Right.
Well, he said something interesting. He said that another of his throwaway lines here that I'm going to remember here. He said, "What you seek is what you find." Something like that. Didn't
But
you
remember how many times, Paul, I have said that this show started off being we're doing a show.
Yeah.
And it's become my vacation in the middle of the week where I can actually sit down and have a conversation with somebody.
Yeah.
It's
And
my
connect
therapy
with somebody.
session.
It's your therapy session that you got. I don't even know what your billing is like. I mean, I need to bill you for all
I
these
sit
things.
on a couch and I explore my life questions.
But
here.
genuinely, in all seriousness, it has become a situation where I actually appreciate and look forward to being able to connect with somebody. And
With no agenda.
Jevon and I know each other, but I don't know. I haven't connected with him on something like this.
Right.
We have no agenda.
Right.
I mean, we got a list of questions we haven't even freaking touched yet, right?
Yeah, they're good questions.
Right, and they are good questions. But truly, this right here, you could turn off the cameras, you could turn off the radio. I probably would still do this
Yeah.
on a weekly basis because of what it gives me in terms of connecting with somebody.
Let me tell you what happens. Here's what's happening for us when we let down our mask, because these are all masks.
Masks,
We've made
yeah.
them up. We've chosen them. We've designed them. We've adopted them from the past. I mean, all these things.
I buy mine at a store, but go ahead.
You can buy them at a store. You really can. So one of the greatest fear in America. Do you know what that is?
The greatest fear.
Number one fear.
I have to be
Black
like,
holes.
What is the number one fear?
It's public speaking. Number two
Yes, right.
is death. So people are more scared of doing the eulogy than being in the box, which I think is funny.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
But why? Well, why is that? Well, one of the things that happens when you're public speaking, and the thing that makes it scary is you have a hyper focus on yourself because you imagine there's a lot of energy directed to you from the audience as well.
And repeat that slowly. You have a hyper focus. You have a hyper focus on yourself.
On my self-image, really.
Right.
Not
It's
my
not about
true
people
self.
being focused on you.
It's me.
It's about you being focused
focusing
on yourself.
me. And so what happens when I focus on me more is I get paralyzed. I get locked up, and people don't know what to do with their hands, right? Like Talladega Nights, I don't know what to do with my hands.
hands.
Yeah, right.
And
There's
why
a
is
movie
that?
analogy. Okay.
Why is that? It was because he was looking at his hands instead of just being normal. Now,
Right.
that's how I started.
Self-consciousness makes you break down here.
It does. It does. Well, so one of the things that happens that I believe that you love the show so much is you actually can forget everything and be with somebody for the sake of the show, for the sake of there's people expecting it, and for the sake and your commitment, and for the sake of just being with another human, you get to leave everything behind. And what happens when you leave everything behind? Well, there is a space, and I believe it's an empty space. That we think emptiness is nothingness, but I believe emptiness is where God lives. It's where creation happens. And if we're willing to give up, lay down everything, then there's something supernatural and so filled with love and creation that the world would explode with creation, with us being in the center of it, because we're the ones we're willing to let it go.
So you're saying this little 10 by 20 studio room here is a church? It's a space where
I
God
am.
exists here?
Yes, God bless you. You're here.
Yeah. Just don't pass the basket.
So I'm lost here.
No, it's
You're going to help me get found, and I'm going to
Yeah.
get the faith.
That's good.
All right. Are you saying then that let go of the past, let go of the future, and just be in the moment, like others have said? Or are you saying, no, there's a thread, and be conscious of where you've been, like Rod wants to do, and where you're going? And
There's both that are happening. So creativity happens in letting go. If you want to accomplish something while you're here, you got to do stuff. For sure, you got to do stuff.
you don't give up or abdicate your responsibility.
you don't sit on a mountain.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
just
you could,
contemplate.
but there's going to be something that you
There'll be
learn if you did.
repercussions. Exactly. Yeah.
So what I'm saying is we're here, our purpose. I mean, I talk about destiny, I talk about fulfillment, and I talk about identity. Those are forms of the same thing. My destiny is there's no way that we can't reach our destiny, which I believe is oneness with God. I believe that's what Jesus was talking about when he talks about the I am. He says, I am. And then he says 22 times in the New Testament, follow me. Different context, but my belief is that he's saying, follow me in the steps that I am, and I'm going to God.
There's a path forward.
So for
You
those
just gotta find
for
it.
those who may not have that definition or relationship with God, and they're maybe a little bit more spiritual or whatever, would you say that connectivity that you're talking about can also be defined as my oneness with the universe, my oneness
Absolutely.
with everything around me?
Yeah, so I believe that everything started out like creation is woven together with vibrating threads, basically. You look at quantum theory nowadays, and that stuff is
String
really
theory specifically. They
String
actually
theory.
believe that there are strings of some sort of
vibrating
tangible-
threads. Yeah,
Right.
vibrating threads put together in different ways make everything. Well,
Some people
di-
call it
different-
energy. Some
different
Yeah.
dimensions. Yeah, right.
my word for that is love. So everything's made out of love. Now, sometimes love shows up and they look very angry, right?
Love
because
hurts.
everything is made out of love. So it's like it comes across in different tangible ways while we're here. But the
So
reality is,
why does love look angry?
well, I don't know. So everything's showing up in the way that it shows up.
Okay.
My job is to see everyone as God and everything as my teacher. Everyone as my teacher. Everything is an opportunity for me to grow. Because if I react with anything less than wonder, less than curiosity, less than thankfulness, that means that I have some things that I need to let go, or at least have the opportunity to let go. Because if you come up and you say, "Hey, Jevon, you're a purple watermelon," I'd be like,
Who
"God,
cares?
that is silly, man." I might even laugh and, hey, you have a good day. You need a couple bucks? You seem like you're off. Because there's no truth in it, right? But if I get upset at it, it's because I believe that there's some truth at it.
Oh.
And so if anything upsets me, takes me out of a place of peace, that's my opportunity. That person, that thing is instantly my teacher, because I get to say, okay, well, what is that?
Right.
That's bothering me so much, because that's an internal thing. Now I get to grow. Now I get to, like you said earlier, push off from the pool. Because if I want to cling to the pool in this analogy, in the story, that means defending myself. Because we all have reasons why you shouldn't call me a purple watermelon. That is not politically correct. That's rude. I'm the, fill in the
Well,
blank.
and I've said this relevant to religion, is that, and Paul touched on it a little bit relevant when he referred to faith, is if you genuinely, really, real time have a strength in your faith, then you should not feel threatened by being subject to somebody else's.
Yeah.
In fact,
You don't have to be.
Right. But in fact, it's kind of almost the exact opposite. If you have strength in your faith, then being exposed to other things would not necessarily undermine your faith.
Yeah.
But if you don't really have strength in your faith, but you are labeling it as such,
Right.
then you end up basically putting yourself in a protective manner, build a wall around yourself to basically not expose yourself to anything else. And that's in itself should be an indicator to you that you do not maybe have the strength that you think you have.
That's right.
So I want to go to this book, and
The book. That's right. I wrote a book.
Was there a book?
the book, the captain.
Just thinking about some popcorn.
The captain. Yeah, grab
I
your.
thought this was a movie. I'm waiting for the movie.
I'm
version.
writing a screenplay
Yeah,
as we speak.
we are trying to option it off at some point.
That's right.
I don't read no stinking books. I wait for the movie to come
The
out.
captain.
right.
The
I'm
captain.
on it.
A tale of self-discovery, awakening, and hidden Atlantis. Okay. So what made you write a book?
So got back into loans. I'll go back and finish that
Yeah.
story.
Say no more.
Did a lot of human behavior. Oh, did I mention I do home loans? That's that's the business I got into. Paraloans.com. Da-da.
What is it again?
Paraloans.com. and
P-A-R-R-A.
It'll take me to my contact page at the moment. I'm in between. My website's down.
And how do we spell Perra? I'm sorry.
Perra.
Perra loans. If you want a loan from this guy.
And
That's right.
what's the website? What's your website?
That's at paraloans.com.
No. You have a personal website too that has the book on
Oh,
it.
JevonPerra.com. JevonPerra.com.
And I know that one works because I checked it this morning.
That's
So-
right. That one works.
So you can get hold of him there.
So years of being in the finance world, I did some coaching and human behavior training with companies as well in there, just because I've just been connected with people, and it kind of turned into that. That was really fun. But I really missed the intentional thing that happened when I was a pastor. Meaning that when you're a pastor, people you're like the guy, and it's expected that we're going to talk about spiritual things and we're going to talk about my problems. And there's a lot of stuff I didn't know, but man, my intention was good.
Yeah.
And it was awesome. God, the spirit, the universe, whatever you want to say, the spirit, energy, I don't care what you call it, man, miracles happened. It was rad. Since I've been in the business world, the intention about being in people's life wasn't the same. Meaning I was busy doing business. So I'm thinking, well, I want to get back into that. I missed that. I missed intentionally blessing people, helping people, loving people in that way. And I didn't want to be a vocational minister again, at least not in the same way. You could do it. I just didn't know how, to be honest. So I thought, well, I'm going to write a book. One of my favorite books of all time, one of my first favorite books, was years ago. I mean, it's probably 30 years ago or something. Is this book called Wisdom Hunter. This guy named Randall Author, and it was about this guy who left his church and went on this journey and ended up finding some guy that helped him find the truth. And it was awesome. And it was a story. And I thought, well, would it be cool if I can write a story that could reach the population in general, and even if somebody
novel versus a self-help book.
Versus self-help, yeah. So what if they enjoyed the story and they missed the meaning altogether? That would be kind of cool. Like there's secrets in here.
But to Paul's affinity to movies, that is a well-scripted movie that you just defined, where it leaves you thinking to where later on, after you've left the movie theater, some revelations come to mind, some dots get connected, and you go,
this is the premise.
And you feel rewarded in a different way.
Absolutely. This is the premise behind like The Matrix or Star Wars or, any of these movies that it's the hero's journey. Joseph Campbell, this is the hero's journey. Why is the hero's journey of obscurity to being found to training, overcoming some obstacle that could never have been overcome, and then somehow they become the hero or the heroine and they overcome it, and we go, yeah!
And a universal theme that's apparently driven into all of us, at least in Western society, going back to the Greeks. That's what Joseph Campbell was saying. This is a myth that resonates with us.
It is, and the reason is it's our story. It's all of our story. And so I thought, well, this is a really tough conversation to have. Why don't I put it in a story and people can get it as they were? Because you talk about truths, you have a different truth. I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. Their truth is very different than a teenager, right? Their truth is, I want my baba. I want that candy that you put up on the refrigerator. As a teenager, I want my freedom. As a young adult, I want success. I want to get recognized.
Right.
As an older adult, you start getting the stuff that you've always been looking for, and that's often the worst thing that could ever happen is you get what you've always looked for.
Well, see, the thing,
then what?
The thing about the myth, though, is it's almost like, I'll just use one of the classics, right? The Odyssey and the Iliad. The Iliad and the Odyssey. Now, the Iliad and the Odyssey are a time frame. There's a time frame. The Iliad first, the Odyssey later, right? The
Iliad's the Trojan War.
The Iliad is basically the story of the Trojan Wars and the siege of Troy and the fall of Troy and all of this stuff. The interesting thing about it,
and the Odyssey's trying to get back home,
right? But if you stop reading the sequence, the series at the Iliad, Odysseus is heading home.
Yeah, end of story.
Run credits.
Right.
Right. Then you read the Odyssey.
And that struggle to get home.
And you see the struggle of getting home, the self-doubt, the challenges. It is now another quest. So this goes back to what I was talking about. It's like when we start off talking about elections and winning elections and whatever it takes to get to a point where you win elections. Okay. But if we stop rolling the tape at the night of the election win, we don't know what happens the day after. And so in most of our lives, I think we deal with goals and seeking challenges and growth and whatever, like there's a destination. And once you get to that destination, I have arrived. That is great, but I think there's so much more power if you get to the point where not only are you open to, but you trust that you will equally thrive past that point of destination.
At least you're willing.
Right. But that's what I've said. If you have a willingness to go there, right? It's like, I found the fact that, and I really wanted you to talk about the book because I found the title alone, The Captain. Forget about any affinity to Atlantis that I may have, but The Captain, okay? You cast the ropes off the dock and you go into water. Even if you have traversed that same channel 100 times before, every time you traverse it, the conditions of natural conditions, wind, water, currents, whatever, may be slightly off or different. And so you are embarking on a journey that you do not really know what you are going to encounter 100%.
Right.
And at some point or the other, you have to fall on your faith that you will handle whatever the journey brings. And if you can develop that muscle to the point where you leave the harbor, you are armed with that muscle, and but not to the point of arrogance.
Right.
That's really the valuable journey, I think.
It is, especially when I can do a worst case scenario and say, there's nothing, I'm going to be able to handle anything. I'm going to be able to handle anything. If I get put in jail for speaking too much of my mind, I'm going to write a book in jail. If I get killed, well, I'm going to find out what happens. I've been wondering what happens, right, when I step into timelessness. If there's really nothing that you can see that you couldn't handle, even if you're just going to trust that, I don't know if I can handle it, but
you know that us sitting in our room, and I'm using us as just figuratively, but anybody, wherever they may be at this moment with listening to the show, and basically is questioning whether they will be able to handle something. It's very simple. If you couldn't handle what life could put you through or what you would face, you'd be dead. You wouldn't be sitting there.
Right.
So the biggest example, the biggest reinforcement of the fact that you can handle whatever comes your way is the fact that you're sitting there right now in the moment.
Yeah.
Because you obviously succeeded. You obviously, to whatever degree of success you may have achieved or not achieved, you survived enough to be in this moment with whatever got thrown in your way.
That's right.
So what's the book about?
So the book, the concept of the book is the culmination of my last 20 years of trying to figure out what I believe, and I've not made it right. So my belief.
So there's a sequel.
Oh, to be continued.
It's
the last three words.
Not just the Iliad. There's an Odyssey here.
There's lots in there. Yeah. So this is the beginning of. I really enjoyed writing it, and it really felt like as this book came through me, I felt like it was a gift.
What caused you to even want to write the book?
Well, like I was saying before, I really wanted to connect with people. I didn't want to be a vocational pastor anymore. And I thought, well, what's a good way to get my message across?
Okay.
And so I just sat down and started writing. I had no idea about Atlantis, except for just, the stories about like bedtime stories, like city that got buried by a tidal wave and sunk. That's all I knew. There's actually a whole belief system of human origin around Atlantis and some other places. It's fascinating. I had no idea about until after I wrote the book. So there's a lot of crazy things that happened to me through this book. I put it down and just tidbits.
How long did it take you to write the book?
It took me 3 years.
Okay.
Wow.
So I'd get up around 5:30 or so and write for an hour, and then I'd get my kids.
Okay.
And so that was the process.
Okay.
And what genre? It's fiction. It's a novel. Where do I find it in the bookstore? Is it a horror story? Is it a inspirational story?
Why would you
mystery?
Why would you even immediately
You've got
go
to
to a horror?
categorize
No.
stuff
Why
here.
would you? No, you don't. That's the whole
That's
point of what we're
you're
talking
always
about.
saying that.
Yeah.
But I want to break it down. I want to get some ideas.
You want to put it in a neat little box
Yeah,
and
is
put it
this
on
a
the
horror
shelf.
story? Is it an inspirational story?
If there was a title, if there was a category called spiritual fiction, that's what it would be.
Spiritual fiction.
It's literally, I think it's literary fiction, which means it's fiction that has a meaning that they're trying to get across. It's not just a story. There's something there that they're trying to convey. So it's literary fiction, and it's kind of
So
self-helpy.
it's like a parable. A parable? Does it have sort
It's
of
a parable. It's an allegory. That's right.
Yeah.
And I've been in the human behavior world, certified as a coach and all kinds of training.
I'm certified, but not as a coach. Go ahead.
Both of those things.
Have some more popcorn.
So
I had to throw it
basically, I have a lot of data that I tried to weave into story form, because that's, once again, it's the stories that really captivate us in life. Data by itself is
Say that again,
useless.
because I preach that that's what I preach all the time in this little church of live radio.
That's right. It's the stories.
Stories
that captivate.
that-
Stories.
Yeah, we relate to story because we can say that's me. We can't say that's me with data, But if you combine data with stories, well, that's powerful.
That's why the Bible was documented the way it was.
Yeah,
Bunch of stories.
That's how information was communicated, with stories. The written form. The Bible was like one of the first mass published things because
Right.
of the Gutenberg
And
press.
and
right?
prior to that, stories were passed on, like or heritage and lineage and culture and family.
That's what binds the
families
tribe together,
itself,
the
yeah.
stories. Here's how we
Stories
do
are on the
things.
fire.
Is that right, Gutenberg, the press?
Yes,
Yes,
Gutenberg Bible.
Gutenberg was the
Gutenberg
first
Bible.
press. Okay, so and you had an affinity to the format because it resonated with you with one of the first books that you read that you enjoyed.
And I was really hoping just to reach more people. So I think that that our world's in a transition time, meaning that we're discovering really quickly that we're not as separate as we thought. You can see it in the organism, right? Just our body itself. Our cells have hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands, I don't know, of these little things called mitochondria. Mitochondria are it's the thing that gives us energy. I forget what it's called.
Hudawadia?
Not ADP.
Mitochondria?
Mitochondria, yeah.
Right.
Now, mitochondria aren't
I
human.
think Paul went to the doctor for that last week.
Hudawadia.
Yeah, they're not human. Those are like little entities. You put them in a petri dish, they're going to live by themselves.
These are
And
like
we're
the-
full of them, right? So,
Is it what, the connectors or something? The little synapses or something?
Don't interrupt me. He's talking about what we're full of.
Okay, yeah, I know what I'm full of. At least
I'm
I've been
beginning to
accused
see
of.
what Paul's
You see what Paul's full of now?
So, but we still got that little separate entities in the cell, in the organs, in the body parts, in our body. And I don't say, oh, this is the finger, and this. I say this is my body, right? As one thing, even though it's filled with hundreds and thousands of other entities besides human stuff that makes me work. Same with a bee and a flower and the sun. Those things can't exist without all three of them. Same with all the parts in the world. It's actually everything's working together for one living organism. So countries are seeing that we can't just bomb another country because financially everybody would go down. Young people are seeing, like race and these kind of things more and more. It doesn't even matter. They're like, what? What's your sports team? Maybe that matters. Less than race.
Yeah.
A lot of times, when I was growing up, my grandparents, that was a big deal, like race and you know. There is a movement that I think is going faster, and I believe it's a higher level of consciousness, of awareness.
So that's what you're referring to as you're saying the world around us is changing.
we're becoming
it's
more
seeking
conscious.
more conscious.
Now, the wave, that energy that's helping us to do that, also, if we're holding on to the side of the pool, to use your analogy again, if we're really committed to that, it's going to take us the other way, meaning that we're going to get more stuck in these ways, in these past ways that we're so sure was true.
Well, don't you think both of those parallels are happening at the same time right now?
They are. So it's our choice, though, that makes it determine which way
Right,
we're
but
going to go.
there is a striving for higher consciousness, but at the same time there is even more an entrenchment and heel digging into
There is.
holding onto the edge of the pool.
So can I
There's
take
gonna
And it
be-
may be partly generational, maybe
That's gonna-
partly
It's going to be dividing more and more. I'm hoping that this book is a help for transition.
All right, so in the hope for those like me who want a log line, like they call it on TV, tonight's
Yep.
episode is about, here's what it says in the back of the book, a mystical tale that unfolds the secrets of human existence. Wow. Adam flees his controlling family and unfulfilling religious career. Are you play the role of Adam in this movie?
I might
here?
have used some details in my
Okay.
life.
Only to
You cannot confirm or deny.
That's right. At
So
least-
Adam flees his controlling family and unfulfilling religious career only to recreate his former prison, on a tropical island. Maya's search for love and belonging begins with hope, but is soon crushed with rejection by those she trusts. And at the end of their ropes, they are surprised to find an unlikely, otherworldly guide that leads them to, the enchanted lost city of Atlantis.
So Paul, there was a part in that what you read about the rebuilding. What was it?
Maya's search for love.
No.
and belonging.
Before that, on a tropical island. What was it?
Oh, he escapes his controlling family and unfulfilling career, only to recreate that same prison on a tropical island.
So let's talk about that for a minute, okay?
Yeah.
How common is that? Do you think?
You escape and you build the same prison.
Yeah,
And why do we do that?
the reason we do that is kind of what the thing that Paul brought up earlier was you find what you look for. You find what you look for. If you think that people are out to get you, you're going to find
They're out to
people that
get
are out
you.
to get you. Yeah, it's like that old story about the old man sitting at the gates, and someone comes up and says, "Hey, how's the people in this town?" And the old man says, "How's the people in the town that you came from?" And they said, "Oh, they're really nice. People will be nice here then," said the old man. Someone else comes up and says, "How's the people in this town? I'm new here." And the old man says, "How's the people in the town you came from?" And they say, "Oh, they're backstabbing crooks out to get me." And he said, "Well, the people here are going to be just like that. You better turn around." It's because of our filter. There's so much data. We're literally getting, especially in our culture, thousands and thousands of bits of data that our prefrontal cortex has to filter and use, and it can only handle like 20 bits, maybe if we're chunking at a time. So if you have thousands or millions of data per second and you can only handle 20, what do you do with the rest of it? You delete it. So everything that we could have ever wanted is already right in front of us, but we only see what we're looking for because there's so much to choose from.
But you know what? When you say that, you're basically robbing me of my ability to basically blame somebody else or external.
You can always blame,
energy or
man.
whatever, right?
Now the question to really ask is that working for you?
Right, and I think, Paul, that was a very, very good way to actually include that into our conversation, because there's a couple of things that happen in that definition. One is there was personal responsibility for repeating behavior, right? Then there was an external guide to help you come out of it. But I bet you when you read this book that it is not about somebody doing it for you,
No.
but you doing it for yourself.
All that we need is already within. There's nothing that we need.
But you got to tap into that, and it's not easy when we're basically subject to a lot of demands, a lot of things that take our attention, energies that we need to apply to our more hectic and busy lives.
Yeah.
Where we start basically being inculcated and indoctrinated into basically taking everything into sound bites. 10-minute this, 5-minute that.
Yeah.
I really don't have time. I mean, my coffee has to be instant. I can't take the time to sit down and have a conversation.
I'm looking for the 5 steps to happiness in here.
I can give you this.
Oh, okay, all right.
5? Wow. Last week you didn't really have time.
3.
You were looking for 3.
3, right.
Right.
Yeah.
And it constantly gets faster and faster and faster.
One of the main things that this book is coming across is story after story about meditation. No matter, who you are, if you attach it to spirituality or if you attach it to this physical health, there's so much data on how good meditation is. But we're in a culture of these performance culture, and I'm the worst of it. I have a hard time sitting still because I feel like I need to be performing and producing and task driven. But sitting still and doing nothing but listening and watching your breath is so healthy.
And you can't do anything else. If you actually are sitting there and consciously watching your own breath, you are absolutely immersed into that activity.
Yeah.
Like, try do that. Try basically just monitoring your own breath and being conscious of your breath, and you tell me what else you can do. Right? So because when you
You only think of one thing at a time. If you're really that focused on it, it blocks out all of the
That's
thoughts.
right.
The closest that I've ever gotten to that is when other than the breathing and meditation. And I'll share something I'm going to basically pick on myself here for a minute with meditation, right? But the closest thing I ever gotten to that is when I would rock climb.
Perfect example. That's why people do adrenaline, because they think it's the activity, but it's it's those moments that make their mind stop. That's what they're addicted to.
You cannot rock climb and basically be focused on something else. You will slip. You will die. Your life is, yes, there's a rope and there's somebody else on the other end of it, which that is a whole another layer to trust.
Right.
You want to know if you can marry somebody, go rock climbing with them.
Yeah.
If you can have them on the other end of the rope and you can still climb, you'll be okay. But the other aspect of rock climbing,
Good. Write that down, Paul.
right?
Yeah,
Other
okay.
aspect of rock
That's one of
climbing,
the lessons.
rock climbing is that you actually have to reach beyond your sight.
Yes.
And you have to feel and absorb information and take input.
Say that again, because that is true. I've never rock climbed, but they say you've got to reach over the ledge. I can't see what I'm.
Reach outside of your sight line, and you have to take input and information through your fingertips. And I will tell you, when you first start rock climbing, just like everything else when you first start, you do not have that muscle basically developed or evolved. So you're getting no information through your fingertips.
Yeah.
Then you're getting every little bit of information, you can't basically break it down or decipher it or sort it out, and it's not just cacophony of information coming through my fingertips. I don't know whether that was a twig, or maybe I just squished a spider, or maybe that's a recluse that just stung me. I have no idea.
And maybe this will hold, and maybe it won't.
And maybe this will hold, maybe this won't. I don't know if what I'm holding right there is that just crumbled rock, or is it actually solid finger hold, right?
Right.
And you cannot see.
Right.
And as you evolve in your rock climbing, you do more and more of it because there's no shortcuts.
Right.
Right? Just like anything else, as you develop that quote unquote muscle, it is amazing what information clearly starts to come in, input through your fingertips. And you get to the point where you never take it for granted because you can't, because you'll slip, you'll die. But you get to the point where you are absolutely in real time deciphering information, processing it, and putting energy and effort and steps literally to moving forward, proverbially and physically. Okay? Because of the information coming not through your eyes, not through your ears, but through your fingertips. And it's almost like the thing that we take for granted of somebody who's basically sight impaired or whatever, where there are other senses that basically compensate. So it's the same kind of thing, except you're
and
not.
you know what I always found strange about rock climbers? Having never been one, you put all this effort, all this danger, all this effort into getting to the top, and what do?
Come down.
You like to have the bottom.
But then what do you do again, Paul?
You do it all over
You do
again.
it all over again, and you take a different path. Because the rock is actually marked with different paths and degrees of difficulty, and so it is fascinating when you think about that in terms of your own personal growth and what you count on and what you depend on for input. And you are so ingrained in doing that, whether societally ingrained or family dynamics ingrained or maybe your own personal, history ingrained and experiences. And it takes courage, and I'm not saying this sort of flippantly. I'm being sensitive to people that find themselves on that fork in the road. It takes courage to let go of that edge of the pool, to actually count on your fingertips to basically give you information, right? And unfortunately, in society, I don't think we encourage people to develop that muscle. I think we go with the, hey, here's a safe path. This step, next step, third step, 99% chance you'll be just fine, right? And we try to apply that across the board. But if you actually, at the same time that you tell people to be cautious, tell them to be adventurous.
We got to tell you to wrap it up because we've gone long again here. He's always convincing me to go beyond the boundaries of the normal format.
Hey, you're the one flipping through the book.
I got to tell you, 2 questions, and then we'll wrap this up. How's the book been received? You threw this out into the universe. Anybody reading it?
When did the book come out?
Came out, I think it was 2 weeks ago now, 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, something like that.
And this is just what, on Amazon?
It's on Amazon, audible.com. You could get it on my website too, but Amazon makes it so much easier.
And since it doesn't fall into a neat category, horror, mystery.
Yeah, you got to look for the captain, and you got to put my name in there. You got to put Jevon or Jevon
So how
Perra.
did you, because I also was like, I looked online and you were able to get that captain on social media, certain pages and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Was it I was astounded at something like
The captain book. I don't know. It was open.
it was kind of,
I guess there's only one captain book.
well, I guess it was that was your destiny.
And the
That's
captain
right.
and the captain is the guide that they stumble
He is
upon.
the otherworldly guide. That's right.
And he's going to take him to
So where are you, Jevon, on this journey?
Where am I?
Yeah.
Am I in the book, you mean, or just in general?
Well, we already identified
as an
that you were
author.
in the book.
As an author.
Well, I'll tell you, man, I've pushed off from the edge of the pool.
You did?
Yeah, so the wonderful thing about being in that ambiguity, being in that space,
Yeah.
is that you never know. I mean, I wasn't planning on being here today. You called me yesterday, and it just happened to work. I thought we were doing this in December.
Yep.
Which, fine, right? So if it works, I'm going to keep saying yes. And I think there's a book actually by this guy named David Hawkins. And David Hawkins is a PhD. He's actually a knight. He's pretty amazing soul. And he has a book called Letting Go. And letting go is the prescription for every physical, mental, and emotional ailment that we have. Just letting go. And what are we letting go? Well, we're letting go of our stories. And if we have no more story, that's a definition of enlightenment.
Well, we argue for our own limitations, and when you say, letting go to me, also, and it sounds like a little bit more of a loftier kind of goal that we just throw around in support groups, but letting go is surrender.
Absolutely.
And I keep telling people that when I got to the point where I was able to accept surrender as an empowerment and not as a defeat, that's when you really understand that letting go is a way for you to be it's the ultimate being in charge.
Yeah.
Is to surrender. I know it sounds completely
surrender to my plans. I'd say the practical step, because I support that.
Yeah.
Practical step is, what could I do that's just super kind? My chiropractor, his name is David Phillipson. He's amazing. He's over off of Beach Boulevard, and he's like a guru. He's hidden guru. You go in there and he'll just blow your mind out of your head. He says, heart, head, hands. Start with your heart. What would be kind? Go to your head, figure out how to do it, and then go to your hands, then do it. If we did that, just super simple, what would be kind? Everyone's world would change. It's like the Mother Teresa quote. We just all are sweeping our own our old porch, right? Just my doorstep. That's
just that action alone, right?
Change the world.
Change the world, and taking accountability and responsibility for that. I will share with you two things personally. Paul doesn't know this. I'll share with you two things that I do whenever I find myself, because it's also easy to fall off that
Then we
road.
got to wrap up here.
Fall off that road, like
Right.
get drawn into that main course of traffic again, right? There's two things I do. One of them
One was a radio show.
is no, I don't. That's not the radio show. The radio show is for your benefit, since it's your therapy session. But I'm glad to be part of it, right? But for 4.5 years, I don't know if the therapy is working or not. But that's a different story. Maybe it's another show. But two things I do. So I was talking when we were starting talking about meditation. I said I'm going to out myself, right?
Yeah.
So here's what I catch myself doing, and it basically re-anchors me, brings me back into that surrender thing, right? Is when I basically want to do meditation, but then I schedule it and I basically put it on a timeline. Okay, just think about that for a second. I got 5 minutes to meditate.
Yeah.
I got 5 minutes to be open.
Wait, it's 6 minutes. I'm late. I got to stop meditating now, right?
Hilarious,
So
yeah.
it's hilarious, right? Yeah. Okay. And if you don't know why it's funny, you try it. You don't know why it's funny. The other one is movie related.
No.
Okay. One of the things that stuck with me when I watched The Love Guru with Michael Myers, right, was when he basically is sitting there, and when they, all these people are like, "Oh, you guru,"
Yeah.
and he actually says what guru as an acronym stands for. Do you remember this?
I don't.
GURU.
Oh, T-U-R-U, yeah.
Right.
That's funny.
So whenever
like
you're
that.
seeking out a guru,
Yeah.
remember that the definition of the word guru, at least according to Mike Myers, which
Yeah.
I actually use as a re-anchoring to yourself, to your point,
That's
that it's
right.
all within.
That's right.
Okay? GURU. Guru, GURU.
Yeah. I like that.
Right? It's a comical reference, whatever, but
Yeah.
whatever it takes for you to, to rebring yourself to that truth, that you have it within you.
So can we cut to the truth of this book? I'm going to give him a challenge that's probably unfair, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Who are you challenging?
I'm the author here. Is there a passage you'd like to read and to bring this to a conclusion?
Yes.
Is there a part of this book? Is there a page you can turn to that says, okay, here's something that...
What's your favorite part of this book?
Give me a snippet that's...
Oh,
says
man.
it.
I can't.
Give me one that's... It doesn't have to be your favorite, but give me one off the top of your head. If you were going to read something to
Leave
somebody,
behind.
I mean,
give me a page and chapter here.
man, I should have done some homework.
You're not reading it, Paul.
Let me see here. I would...
Flip
I-
through it. Go ahead.
I
Give
would-
me a second to throw you off here. But you should always have a part when a
This
book
is good. This
publicist...
is going to help me with my
Book
next...
publicists always, a friend of mine was a book publicist, always have a part that went on the spur of the moment you can read, and that captures an essence of what the book is about.
Well, and again, while Jevon's looking, it's Jevon Perra, and it's JEVONPERRA.com. The
That's
book's
right.
called The Captain. It's available on audio,
Audible.com.
Audible.com, and on Amazon.
That's right.
It's interesting read. I think I'm curious if people do read it. Call us and share with us, because I think depending where you are on the journey, you may read this book differently. And so it would be interesting for me to just get input from people who actually will go
He's
read
looking
it.
for that one little passage that he just put a smile on his face when it came to him when he wrote it here.
And
Gives him a little. It gives us a little insight into how the book sounds, what the voice of the book is.
Yeah.
I also want to say that having Jevon on here for the captain is one of a few that I'll be doing between now and December on this show, because I'm also trying to introduce some ideas for people that may be looking for gifts.
Ah, that's a good idea.
Okay, to people with the holidays coming up and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Gifts are hard to come
I have
by.
a lot of friends I have a lot of family that basically they don't need another pair of socks.
Isn't that the
they don't
truth?
need another sweater. Maybe something that more resonates with them where they're at.
Well, it has a little more thought to it than just, I went to the store and bought this for you.
So the first book, the first potential gift that I would like to basically suggest you look into possibly is Jevon's book, The Captain, which is available on Amazon and audible.com.
Well, can I give you, while he's looking for a passage, I'll give you another little weird analogy. You were saying the other day that your father is fascinated with World War II, right?
Yes.
My father lived World War II.
Yeah.
He's older. He's gone now. He's a
Okay,
bomber pilot.
okay, you win.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not seeing.
Okay,
No, that wasn't the point.
I'm kidding. Yes.
So here is the point. So one of his hang-ups in his whole life, it's ironic, it was the title of this book. My father fought as a bomber pilot and left right before he was, his missions ran out before he became a captain. To the day he died, he said, I should have been a captain. He's just angered by it. Like, who cares if you were a lieutenant or a captain? You were the head of the plane. You did it. I know, but I should have been a captain. Captain to him was a achievement in his life that he missed, that he regretted till his 93rd birthday when he passed from this planet here. The fact that it's just casually called the captain.
What is it about that title? What is it about that? Dead Poets Society, Captain, my captain.
Yes, right.
What is
Instead
it
of the
about
lieutenant
What is it
or-
about captain?
Exactly.
Not lieutenant, not general.
Yeah, that's my point.
What is it? Is it that sweet spot between leadership
colonel,
and
not
off
major.
the people? What is
Yeah.
it about that?
Maybe so, yeah. If you're on the boat, it's the captain that's going to
Yeah.
save you.
You're there.
It's
You're
that.
not passing orders through a CB unit.
Nobody wants to be the admiral, but a captain
Yeah.
has a certain cachet to it that my father felt deeply for the rest of his life and felt that he had missed something that should have been his.
Yeah.
So did you find your part?
I found his part, yeah.
Let's
All right,
read-
here we go.
let's-
So this is right when Adam meets the captain, and he at this point still thinks he's just this weird sea captain that's fishes and sells his fish in a little shack. So he asks him about why did Jesus walk on water, and Adam said, well, I think just so that it would bring more import to his teaching. So the captain says, very well, so hear my revolutionary teaching to you, son of man. If you listen to the audiobook, it's a way better voice. Very well, so hear my revolutionary. Anyway, the guy did a better job than me. The captain's voice started to have an amplified and reverberating quality as if it were coming from all around Adam, not just from his mouth. Up till now, you have believed in a fantasy. Your life is not real like you think. Matter is not reality. What you think is solid is not solid at all. It's all energy, swirling, flowing, organized energy. It's rays of light that are projecting on the screen of your consciousness. You just see the flickering movie of lights, and you call it real life. But know this, son of man, nothing you see is real.
Well, I think on that note, we will say goodbye. Thank you, Jevon, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, the book is great. Thank you again for sharing that with me. And I really urge you guys to go check it out. That was just a snippet of what's in this book, and it's really powerful. And if you are at whatever part of the journey that you're on, I think you'll find this book very much a good navigational tool.
Can I put a link in your post of this
Oh,
podcast?
absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
so there'll be a link to get it on Audible. The audiobook turned out really good. Guy named Noah hired. He did a great job narrating the voices, and I enjoyed listening to it. I was like, man, this book's good.
That's awesome. Yeah, I only read it, but I, like a lot of you guys that are basically spend a lot of time in the car, I've gotten into the habit of basically doing a lot of books on. I mean, it goes against my desire to have fingers to paper.
Yeah.
But I really like. I'm a voracious reader, so if that's the only way I'm going to basically get the input, I'm going to get it that way. Anyway, we will see you again next week. Thanks for joining us, Nick. Thanks for being in the room
Yeah, great
with
job,
us.
Nick.
Can we get another set of applause, please, for Nick? No, I want to get a plus for Nick this time.
He didn't do that much. He didn't doesn't deserve it.
Paul's not on it today, so we'll
Yeah.
just scout.
We're gonna applause Paul.
Oh, whoa! The buzzer's okay. It's time to go. We'll see you next week with another exciting episode of the Rad Life. And please check out Jevon's book and gift it during the season. And if you read it, share with me what you liked about it. Thanks, everybody.
You have been listening to the Rad Life radio show with your host and age explorer, Rad Gantos, brought to you on the one and only octalkradio.net. Join us again next week as we continue our journey of discovery into life's challenges, opportunities, options, and all the latest and greatest things that come with getting older.